That's right, y'all.
Welcome to the Journey to DevelopHer podcast.
Let's go.
This podcast equips you with the real estate and wealth strategies you can use to develop and enhance your skills, experience, and profits in real estate, while also being healthy on the inside and the outside.
You ready?
We are showcasing some of the world's greatest male and female real estate developers and entrepreneurs. Now it's time to develop. Here's your host, real estate developing queen, Deontay Chantel.
Let's go.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Journey to DevelopHer podcast. It's Deontay Chantel, your host. And today we have a special guest, Miss Shaniqua Nicole. How are you today?
Hey, Queen. I'm amazing. How are you?
I am well. And I meant to say Shaniqua Nicole, aka Money Maven. We're going to talk about all about her brand, all about her community, and a few. I wanted to have you on a podcast because I feel like our missions were greatly aligned. We're all about uplifting our communities. It seems like pouring back into our communities, making sure our people are getting the financial literacy that they need once they even obtain the wealth. But you and I believe we both teach you and I teach our people to build wealth as well. So that's amazing. So kudos to you.
Thank you so much.
All right. So Shaniqua Nicole is a serial entrepreneur, real estate investor, and a financial literacy coach. She has her own group called the Money Maven Club. So we're going to talk about that in further detail in a few. But Shaniqua, I want to talk about your upbringing. What was your first perception of wealth growing up as a kid?
First of all, Deontay, I want to say thank you so much for having me on the podcast. I really appreciate you even, thinking of me to share my little story because I'm super new in this space of real estate development, but it's been something that I wanted to do for a long time. But a little bit about my upbringing. So I am the oldest of 8 siblings, 2 teenage parents. And my first thoughts of wealth, let's see, that's an interesting question. So I grew up I don't want to say poor, but, to be honest, that's what it was, right? I'm from the projects in Trenton, New Jersey. And I have teenage parents. My mom had me when she was 16. My dad was 17. But thank God for the village, right? Because my grandmothers were heavily involved in my upbringing. And to be honest, wealth wasn't around me, right? But I didn't grow up in a lack environment, right? So we always had what we wanted, what we needed, and way more than we should have had, right? And, we're kind of spoiled in that way. So although we might not, from a fiscally perspective, we weren't wealthy or we weren't rich, we were rich in love. I had a lot of family around, always had a bunch of cousins around. So we lacked nothing. You know what I'm saying? Had a very normal childhood, no trauma. But when it comes to money, that just, we weren't rich. Let's just say that.
Right.
But money was always flowing. So my mom and my dad, they were teenagers. So they were young, energized, and they were both hustlers. My dad used to sell clothes when I was very young. My mom used to sell, anything that she found interesting. I'll tell you one funny story. My mom always says that Build-A-Bear stole her idea. So,
okay. Oh man, we could have been billionaires right now.
Listen, we could have been billionaires, and this is why execution is so important. So that's why I always tell my community, outside of the inspiration that I bring, outside of the strategies that I bring, you have to execute, right? Because the difference between you and your next $1 billion is the execution, right? So my mom used to sell, clothes, all kind of things, but she used to make these little bears. So she would get these bears from New York City, Chinatown in New York, and 4th of July, she would decorate it with like a flag and chocolates, or Valentine's Day, she put together little baskets with the bear. And then here we come. Now you have Build-A-Bear, who's a multi-billion-dollar company, right? So
definitely stole her idea. Yeah, because
Right.
your mom, we needed your mom to have her own company.
Listen, and it's even, I still tell her today, because she's mentioned to me before that she has a notebook full of ideas, and I'm like, well, you can't die with those ideas.
Yeah,
you have to share them with somebody. If I'm the executioner in a family, let me know so we can put the things in place to bring some of these ideas to fruition. But yeah, so while we weren't rich in money, we were definitely rich in like love and family and support and morals and all that kind of stuff, and community. Most importantly. So I would say the first time I actually saw like rich people, it was probably, I feel like this is one thing that's different about growing up in the North versus the South. There were a lot of white people around, so we would go to the white neighborhoods to go trick-or-treating because they had better candy. And you know what I'm saying? And it just is what it is, right? So my first thoughts of wealth were white people, but I never felt like I was poor. I never felt like or thought that I was poor. But yeah, we would typically see that in neighborhoods that didn't look like ours. And so that's what fuels me today, is to let people know, like, this is for you. This is for us, right? This is our God-given right to abundance. You know what I'm saying?
No, that part. I mean, and I'm not going to say we have similar backgrounds, but I grew up in an urban city. When Brooklyn was an urban city, because Brooklyn is no longer considered.
Brooklyn has changed.
Yeah, it's different now. You got to be rich to live in Brooklyn. But I grew up in Brooklyn when it was really Kirkland, we'll call it. But in the late 80s, I was born. I actually moved to Newark, New Jersey at like 13. So I grew up. Yeah, Newark was Newark. It's still Newark. You know what I mean?
Still Newark. I actually have a lot of family in North Jersey. We would go to Newark all the time. My mom, like I said, she would go to New York and Newark and get her wholesale stuff to come back to the city and sell her stuff. My dad was doing the same thing. And even my grandparents were not my grandmother. She was the safer one, and she was the one that helped me be grounded. But my mom's parents, they were hustlers too. Even my grandparents, my great grandparents, they were also hustlers, right? So it what I do is kind of in my blood and in my spirit, but it was really the pushing from my parents that wanted me to go to college and do things the right way.
Thank God for grandparents. And I grew up with a mom. My mother had me at 20, so she's probably a little older than your parents, but natural born hustler, like to this day, just a hustler. Father, same thing. He's a Jamaican that moved over to the US at some point, but straight hustler. He's actually literally 5 jobs. But what I can say about him, and I'm probably gonna have him on the podcast because he was a real estate investor.
Okay.
But he didn't raise me. I love him regardless. He didn't raise me, so it wasn't like I learned real estate from him. So for me to end up in real estate was really nothing but God. And but I bring all that up because although we probably felt rich in love, I didn't grow up with a silver spoon in my mouth, but my mother always made sure I had. My family, my grandmother and my mom always made sure I had, even my grandfather. But we was definitely not rich. I didn't understand money, credit, any of those things until I became an adult. Maybe when I went to try to get my first car, right? But I can't say I was blessed. Because at 19, I was making like $50,000 a year. So I can't say God always blessed me.
Oh, look at us. We definitely have similar stories. So that was the same for me. I'll say when I was about 17, I've been working since I was 15. So, I gotta get the working papers, have my mom sign off on them so I can go and get me a little job after school, or in the summer times I was working on an ice cream truck. So I've been working since I could work. And when I was 17, I remember my mom sitting me down. I had a job at the time and I wanted to get a car, but I remember her sitting me down with the insurance guy. So my mom actually, even though she was a young parent, she wasn't irresponsible. She used to work really great jobs. She was also working on Wall Street. She actually used to travel into the World Trade Center before 9/11. And, so I was a little privy to some things, not everything, because that was her job, not mine. But when I was around 17 years old, she sat me down with the insurance guy and made me listen to his spiel and understand how the policy worked. And she made me pay for my own life insurance policy at 17.
Wow. I mean, I think that's good. That's actually, well, she should have probably paid for it, but I think that's pretty good that she introduced that at such an early age, because I didn't even get my policy. I'm trying to think. I got mine probably at 19 when I worked at a corporate AT&T job. And my mother, I'm not going to sit here and say I didn't know what life insurance was, because I did. My grandmother had died a few years before that, so I knew what it was. But my mother, thank God that never happened to me. But
tell you this, the one thing that it did for me was, so at the time, what I know now, being in the business, it was an index universal life policy, right? And so he was telling me all these features about this policy. Mind you, I'm 17 years old. I'm like, when can I leave? But it was so interesting to me, the concept of how the rich use these policies. And if you fund it this way, by the time you're 30 years old, you'll have this amount of money in there. So I will say this, I actually had that policy until I moved here to Atlanta. So I had been paying on it all that time. I've only been in Atlanta for, so I bought my house here in 2014, and I had it from I don't know when, probably from like 2004, I might've had it. So I had it for like 10 years, and I was just paying on it. It was just something that, it was a bill I had to pay. I was already paying my cell phone bill. I'm the oldest, right? So me and my mom kind of grew up together. So I always had, I was always open to take on responsibility. And by the time I moved to Atlanta, I had a nice cash value in there. So I actually was able to take that money from the cash value in my policy. And this is the first time I'm ever even telling this part of it, because it just came to me now that we're talking about it, that I cashed out the cash value of my policy and used that as a deposit, to help me close on my first home here in Atlanta.
That's incredible. That's a good play that everyone should be implementing and using. I mean, so I'm glad you brought that up. Now, I know you to be a wealth strategist. Do you also do insurance policies, or?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. Okay. Third.
So financial planning is also a part. So wealth strategy, wealth looks different for everybody. So, wealth planning, financial planning, life insurance, right? Whatever you want to call it, estate planning. There are many different pillars, right? And life insurance is the very first, right? Because we're not working to build and buy all of these assets to die and then leave them to our children, who now have to pay taxes on them and don't know where they're going to get the money from, right? Exactly. What happens is a lot of people pass away, and they have to pay estate taxes to pass this stuff on to their family.
Yes.
Well, guess what? If your family doesn't have the cash to pay, they have to liquidate the assets. So they have to now sell the family house to get the money to pay the state back to get the house to even sell. So
right. And I don't know if you heard about the new laws that are being passed, where you will have to pay taxes on, and we always paid for inheritance taxes. I'm trying to remember what it was. I used to be an estate paralegal, by the way. I should know what I'm talking about. I should know what I'm talking about, but it's been some time. But they just passed a new law. I'm trying to remember what it was exactly, where it's let's say if grandma or your mom purchased the house for $20,000, and now it's worth $2 million, you now have to pay a percentage to the government on the equity. Did you hear about that?
Sure. Capital gains,
Yeah.
So
as soon as it passes.
Exactly it. So that's exactly it, right? And that's what a lot of people don't realize, is that, they think, okay, well, I'm leaving my children with the house, but it's all about how you're passing that house on, right? Because you're going to acquire it at a level, and then when you pass, it's going to be at another level, and there's equity that that has appreciated. Hopefully it's appreciated over that time,
right?
And what people don't realize is that the government wants their piece, right? And so you have to pay taxes whenever you have some kind of taxable event. And unfortunately, when that passes hands from your estate or yourself to your children, that is a taxable event. So that's exactly, what I was speaking of. And, unfortunately, people do find themselves in that situation where, number one, they can't take out a mortgage on the property because they don't own it yet. Right. Number two, they don't have access to the cash needed to.
Right.
No,
you're good.
Okay, there we go. They don't have access to the cash needed to pay the government their portion, and sometimes they'll have to actually sell the property, or maybe bring in an outside investor to get money to pay the government off, and then work out some kind of deal to keep the property in the family.
So, what do you recommend? How should our people, or anybody in general, how should they have their estate planning set up?
Yeah. So when you have trust, you don't have to change ownership, right? So, I'm sure you and your audience have heard, own nothing but control everything, right? And the way that you do that safely, to mitigate risk and to mitigate taxes, is through estate planning. So one of the ways that I help my clients with estate planning is by developing a 3-pronged system, right? Where you have 3 different trusts that are in place for all of your different assets. So you're going to have a trust, you're going to have a living trust, right? That's going to be the one that you create while you're living, and you can change it and all those kind of things. You're going to have a family trust, and then you're going to have a business trust. Okay. Your business trust is going to hold, most of, it's going to be the owner of your businesses. Your family trust is going to be the owner of your assets. And so what happens, and then you make your beneficiaries to that trust, or you make your trustees beneficiaries, right? So when if your trust, right, don't forget, your trust is almost a living, breathing entity in itself, because it has, it's registered with the state, just like we are. We have birth certificates to our state that we're born in, and your trust has a certificate of existence in the state that it's born in, right? I.e., it's articles of incorporation, and it also has the EIN number, just like we have a social security number. Right. So your trust can have credit, your trust can own assets, your trust pays taxes. It is like another person. But the great thing about it is that when your trust owns your assets and you pass, it's not, your assets aren't changing hands, and therefore doesn't incur a taxable event. So now your kids still get the benefit of having all the assets that you've been acquiring, and they don't have to pay taxes on it because it doesn't have to go through the probate process. It just, changes hands on paperwork pretty much.
Right. And as many of you may know or may not know, and Shaniqua can attest to this, you can also do this with your other investments as well, such as your stocks, I think your bonds, whatever you have that you want to pass on to your heirs. Yeah. So,
and the easiest way to do that is to just make your trust the beneficiary of any kind of investment account that you have. Your trust can actually have its own investment account. So you can have a brokerage account in the name of the trust. Yep.
Awesome. And I'm glad that we're having this conversation because, first of all, life insurance, even a baby needs life insurance. I hate to say this, but we see too much dependency on crowdfunding a funeral. Of course, we don't expect a baby to pass away, but
GoFundMe.
Right. GoFundMes are not life insurance. So
unfortunately.
I'm going to donate for a baby, though. I'm just saying I will. But
a lot of people also don't even realize that GoFundMes are taxable. So you're going to get a 1099, So if someone donates, if you open up a GoFundMe and you receive $50,000, the IRS want their piece. And guess what? You're going to take that $50,000 and use it on whatever you use it on. But the IRS still wants their piece, and you're going to get a 1099. And your name.
I didn't know that.
Oh yeah.
Well, thank God I never had to find out. But I didn't know that.
Yeah, when you set up a GoFundMe, they ask for the beneficiary's name or an EIN number, social security number. Oh yeah.
Okay, everybody, y'all better hit up Shaniqua. Get your life insurance squared out. I mean, I used to ride motorcycles. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah, it was a point where when I did leave AT&T and I started my paralegal job, and my job didn't have the great benefits as AT&T. So my mother was like, you about to get on a motorcycle, you better get some life insurance. And I remember the policy, just a 10-year term, because I was 22, 23, was like $20 a month.
Oh, yeah.
Just get something until you figure out what's the best option for you.
Absolutely. I mean, and I would say, so here's the thing about life insurance, right? People try to get life insurance when they need it and when it's too late.
Mm-hmm. Yes, talk about it.
And at those times, it's too late, you know? So the best time to get life insurance, if you don't have any, is today, because you're the youngest you're going to be, and you're probably the healthiest that you're going to be. And those are the two major factors that insurance companies use to grade you and charge you on your life insurance. So I would recommend, if you're young enough to qualify for a 30-year term, that be the very minimum of coverage that you have. Number one, right? You had a 10-year term, but let's say you got your 10-year term at 20 years old.
Right.
At 30 years old, at 30 years old, you have no more insurance.
Right. So what I had to do personally is I had to get some new insurance. I think I got whole life. Yeah, it's whole life.
And then guess what? It's more expensive when you're 30 than when you're 20.
It is. It's more expensive. And then they're checking to see if you're a smoker. They're looking at all kind of crap.
They look into your medication.
Yeah, because they'll look at like
your hospital stays, you know.
Yep. Any little thing. If you smoke, if you had surgery, like you're disqualified. You know, one of my ex, he had a kidney transplant and he was disqualified. So, and he needs it.
It happens. It definitely happens. That's why I tell people the best time to get it is today. You know, you're not going to get any younger, right? Age is the number one factor in how much it's going to cost you. And, you know, God forbid you leave today and go and get in a car accident and you can't, you know, now you got to have a major surgery and you can't walk, or you have a concussion or something, you're no longer coverable, right? So get it while you can and while it's going to be the cheapest for you, for sure.
Awesome. Now, do you teach how to borrow from your, I guess it's the whole life insurance to invest? Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about that.
So I actually, I have two ways that I love to use cash value insurance. And there are different kind of cash value insurances out there. So you have your whole life, your universal life, index universal life. They all develop cash value. What that means is that you have a portion of your premium that you pay for insurance, and you have a portion of your premium that goes into an investment account. So I like to use this, right? Like, you know, there are a lot of financial professionals out there that are super rich and they have millions of dollars in the bank already, right? But when you're first generation and you're trying to figure things out and build this ladder up for your family, you have to start foundationally, right? While they're not out here, you know, you'll hear people say buy term and invest the difference. Yeah, I agree. That's cool for a foundation. Buy term for your very foundation. That's the very minimum that you need. But when you want to talk about, Lord.
That's a beautiful picture, by the way.
Oh, thank you. When you want to talk about, Lord, where was I going? Oh, buy term, invest the difference. So when you want to talk about cash value and life insurance, it's not going to be in a term policy, right? So the only policies that generate cash value are like whole life, universal life, index universal life, right? And so you have what's essentially an investment account and your life insurance. And the great thing about having the investment account with your life insurance is that typically there's going to be at least a guaranteed minimum that you will accrue every single month or every year, depending on how they, you know, add it to your account. But sometimes they're paying you dividends, and sometimes you're just, you know, you'll just get, let's say it's like a 10% rate, right? Whatever the interest rate is. But at the very minimum, though, you also have a floor. So people don't understand this, right? When you have $100,000 in the stock market and the stock market drops 50%, how much money do you have?
50,000.
you're down to $50,000. If you have $100,000 cash value in a life insurance policy and the market drops 50%, typically you're going to have a minimum growth of 2%, right? So even if the market is down 50%, your insurance company is still going to give you 2% interest on that 100,000. So now you have 102,000 and your best friend only has 50,000.
Oh, wow.
Right. And then if the market does tank, whatever percentage, you'll never feel that negative impact. So you'll always have that minimum cash value of 100,000 plus whatever that interest rate is. So, life insurance can be used for many different things. I don't talk about it a lot because, people, I'm just not salesy. I'm very solutions oriented, and I like to deal with people's whole wealth, and what their goals are. And typically that's like, it's either a starter conversation or it's really a strategic conversation where it's like, okay, now I have a lot of money. I need to figure out what to do with it. I want to diversify my assets. What can we do here?
Right. Yeah. And I've seen, I remember we had to do a trust back in the day. So this is why I'm not super fresh on it. But I mean, these people had $5 million policies and they were borrowing from $5 million policies. So they can pull out a bunch of money.
Absolutely.
And it made sense.
If you're following, if you guys ever have heard of infinite banking, or if you have not heard of infinite banking, you want to Google the term. So you've got your Walt Disney's, you've got Walmart, right? You got all of these families that use these universal life policies and whole life cash value policies to build wealth and create an infinite banking system, right? So here's the play. The play is,
what's the play?
You have your $100,000 in your cash value. It can be $1 million. So I have two strategies that I teach. One is for people with children. I call it the $1 million baby. And it's, if we start investing for your child in a universal life insurance policy before the age of 2, by the time they're in their 20s, definitely by 30, they'll be millionaires, right? Okay. And you can invest a very, I'm not going to call $100 small, but you can invest $100 a month. You invest $100 a month for your child before the age of 2, up until they're 30 years old, they're going to have $1 million. If they leave that money in there by the time that they're 65 and they use it for retirement, they're going to have many millions, right? $20 million. And this is cash value. So what can you do with the cash value in a life insurance policy? You can borrow from the policy, and people don't really understand this concept. They're like, why would I borrow my own money? It's my money, but the reason that you borrow, this is tax strategy stuff. So this is my favorite kind of stuff to do. But the reason that you borrow from your life insurance policy, opposed to what I did when I was, buying my house, I cashed out my policy. So when I cashed out my policy and got my cash, I no longer had life insurance anymore. And then I had to then go and buy life insurance 10 years later, 10 years older. So I did the same thing as you. But, it was still fairly cheap, but what I could have done, had I known then what I know now, you can borrow from the policy and keep your death benefit, right? So let's say you got $100,000 cash value in your policy. Or you did this for your children and now your child is 30 years old. They're ready to get married, start a family. Let's say they have $1 million cash value in their policy. They can take out $500,000 and buy a house.
Right.
They don't have to pay any taxes on that money. There's no taxable event that's created. They can take out $300,000 and invest in their business, right? They can take out $800,000 and do whatever they want with it, right? You continue to pay those premiums going forward, but you borrow from the policy because a loan is not income.
Right. Now I have a question. Sorry to cut you off.
Go ahead.
How long before they can start borrowing the money? So we're talking about at least 5 to 10 years of making payments?
No, ma'am, not at all. So it depending on what kind of policy you have. But normally I have companies that I work with, you can start borrowing once the check clears, you can borrow. So you can put the money in and you can borrow from your policy, borrow from that cash value. And the reason that you do that, like I said, is because borrowed funds are not taxable. When you get a loan from the bank, that money doesn't go on your tax return. So it's the same concept. So that money's not taxable. And if you borrowed the $100,000 and you die tomorrow, guess what? You still have life insurance.
Right. Okay. So everybody has to go see Shaniqua. Shaniqua, you about to just be a part of like everything I do now, because a lot of insurance brokers, or whatever they call themselves, they don't offer that. They, I've heard a lot of craziness. I know it could be done because I've seen it done. I've done the legal documents for the multi-million-dollar policies, but these people I've been coming across, like the person that signed me up for life insurance. Now I met her through referral, but she's not talking the sauce that you're talking right now.
Right.
You're talking something else. So I know it can be done.
Here's the thing about life insurance agents, right? They're just like real estate agents. We don't get paid unless we sell a policy. But I operate in God's world of abundance. And like I said, I wouldn't consider myself a life insurance agent. I'm a planner. So I work as a fiduciary for my clients, and I do what's best on your behalf, right? So the way that you have to structure this policy for the client, insurance agents actually get paid less money on that.
But yeah, we were talking about insurance agents not offering that service because they're not going to make money on those type of insurance policies, which like I said, I knew it could be done. I just knew she couldn't do it for me. So we'll definitely strategize and figure out a way. Like I do a lot of I'm not doing as much personal coaching as I was before, but definitely will be referring you because you can get the job done.
Okay, I appreciate that. Yes.
But let's talk about your elevating from the corporate ladder to, tell us your journey. So you went from corporate to insurance, or that the corporate and insurance? Okay.
Yeah. So I started my corporate journey at Merrill Lynch when I was 19, just like you.
I actually applied and got hired there.
Yeah. So I started my corporate journey when I was 19 at Merrill, and I was going to school for finance, going to college for finance. So it was like, yes, like I made it. Nice. This is what I'm doing with my life, right? I'm on the right path. But, and then the recession hit. So then the housing market burst and so many people got laid off, right? And so that gave me my taste of real life. But I didn't get fired.
Oh, okay.
I didn't get fired because I was young and I was cheap labor and I was working hard, like I was young, I was energetic. So I know now that they kept me because I was probably cheaper than the people that were more tenured. And I was willing to do more just because I was fresh and I didn't know anything, right? And I was young and I was creative, and, I had helped them save over $150,000 on a project that we were working on in my team. And they were paying me $50,000, right? Or maybe even less than 19. But so yes, I worked for Merrill Lynch for a minute, left them, went to another investment consulting firm. And actually when I worked for Merrill, the money I was making was great. But when I looked around to my left and my right, I looked at my employees who had full-blown families, and I just couldn't really understand how they were making a living off of that income. Yeah. So I started a little side hustle. So at that time, I started my little side hustle of a tax business. Okay. And I mean, now we're 15 years later, and this little side hustle has grown into, really a love of taxes and strategy and a full-blown accounting firm and investment management firm. So that's what I currently do full time.
Wait, I didn't know you did taxes either. All right, so she's just like a plethora of wealth knowledge, and you gotta.
Yes, I literally, I know that my gift is helping people understand this whole universe of finances, right? Because there's so many different, avenues and all kinds of things that you don't even talk about. So it's always fascinated me. Finance just always fascinated me, and that's kind of how my corporate career evolved. And then eventually I got to the point where I had hundreds of clients, and tax season was great because it was just a 4-month period. So
Right.
I do my taxes, and I was still working my corporate job, but it eventually got to the point where I was just like my job was in the way.
Right. That's
Because
how it
the
be.
only way that I could grow my business, at that time, what I thought was by having more and more clients. And it really was, my job was in the way of that growth. My job was in the way of me training someone to help them help me grow. So, I had to quit the job before the job quit me, and left corporate and have been on my own for about 5 years now. And it's been, it's been super. Sorry about that. It's been super amazing. But when I left corporate, what I also left was that good check that came every 2 weeks. And, and something I had come accustomed to for over 15 years. And so that's what, 12 years is my corporate career, but that's what the job and the corporation and, that's what our economy wants you to do, is get comfortable accepting these little paychecks that you get. And so what I decided was that I needed to find, also had a little bit of money. I've always been a little saver. So had my little, nest egg that I had been saving, also had some retirement money as well. So when I left corporate America, and I had a business, right? I had like a thriving business where I was making 6 figures in my business. So I left my 6-figure income at the job. And my first goal was to replace my corporate income. So it's like, okay, it's go time.
Right.
What are we going to do? So we're going to get more clients. That just totally burned me out, right? And this is in my first year of business, super burnt out, hundreds of clients, over like 250 clients I had.
Oh, wow.
And what I decided was that I wanted to create the stream, just like I used to get from my corporate career. I need to create that in my own life. And so that's what made real estate kind of interesting for me, because I had a little bit of money saved, and I'm like, okay, well, if I buy a property, then I could have, a little rent coming in every month. And if I get $3,000 in rent coming in every month, we can cover this bill, that bill, this bill, you know what I'm saying? So that was very attractive to me. And that's how I first even had the thought of investing in real estate.
Awesome. So, wow, you're just amazing. No, seriously. And you're super blessed too, because a lot of people can't say that they quit their corporate job and then they had so many clients that they couldn't even handle the clients. Normally they're struggling to find clients. So, but like you said, you started the side hustle while
my
you
side
were
hustle
in the
was 10 years in.
Right.
I was 10 years in on the side hustle and working on my, I was working my business and the job. And that's the thing, people see this internet stuff, right? These digital marketers out here selling, what they call it, Twitter LLC.
Girl.
People see Twitter LLC telling people, oh, start your business. Listen, I had a 6-figure business and I had a 6-figure side hustle. Okay. And that allowed me to be able to save money and put myself in position so that when I was ready to make the jump, it made the transition a whole lot more easy. Another thing that I help my clients do is uncover their emotional attachment to money, right? Yes. And when you leave a job and you are scrambling for clients, scrambling to make money, you're willing to accept any and everything. And that was never, like I said, I never operate from a space of lack. So, I knew that I couldn't operate that way when I left my job. Money is like the last thing I want to worry about, so like even my bills, I've always tried to keep my bills on auto pay or prepay them in some kind of way, because I feel like when you can focus your energy on higher frequency tasks, such as creating, such as, being of value to people, when you can focus your energy on those things, that's when you're able to receive the abundance and the blessings that we keep talking about.
Amen. That's so true. A lot of people don't realize that they have to very shortly after quitting their 9 to 5. They actually still have to do those 40 hours and sometimes 80 hours to get that business.
Listen, people leave 40. Entrepreneurs are crazy, right? Because we leave our 40-hour work week job to go and work 80 hours for ourselves or 100 hours.
Yes.
So here's the thing. My husband tells me, you can't turn your brain off. And even as an entrepreneur with a small team, it's just like, okay, I need this person. I need that person. What's next? You know what I'm saying? I'm a creator. And now this space that I'm in now, I feel like I'm an investor too. So it's like, whenever I have some kind of, so the book written by Damon John, I love The Power of Broke.
Okay.
And I love
that book.
Yes, I love the concept because it's like, okay, I'm gonna take what I have and invest it all. And now I'm back to zero. And I'm still out here hustling like I have nothing. I'm still out here working.
Yeah. Yep. That's the best way.
Still out here working like we're back to zero. That's just kind of how I operate. But so back to real estate, had a little money, my issue with real estate, the reason I hadn't invested in real estate earlier was that I mean, we're both from New Jersey and, it's expensive to get into real estate, even if you want something crappy, and years ago you were spending at least $150,000. So I was looking at doing it, but then the taxes were like $13,000 for the year.
That's the main problem right there, the tax. Those taxes are nuts. Now those houses that were $150,000, they're $300,000 to $400,000 in the taxes.
Easily.
Taxes are so high.
So let me tell you, like, I have struggled with investing in real estate for years because it's so capital intense.
Yeah.
And so I know that I'm just like, okay, if I buy $250,000 house, I need 20% down. That's $50,000. I can take, and so I'm going to invest $50,000 and get, maybe $500 a month cash flow. I'd rather risk the $50,000 investing in a new business. And so that's another thing that I do is I invest in businesses. I invest in the stock market, right? So I spread my money all around. It's all at different risk levels. But I have a new love for real estate, and I'm learning to get more comfortable with financing and debt and stuff like that. Yes. Initially, I was just like, okay, well, I have this little bit of money. So I had about 50,000, right? And I wanted to get into real estate with this 50,000, but I just wasn't ready to take on another bill, so I didn't want to get a mortgage. I was fresh out of corporate and I was losing, my 6-figure salary. So that was scary.
Right.
And I'm like, I just want to start creating something so it can give me something extra every month that I don't have to worry about. But I didn't want to have bills to come with it just because my mindset wasn't ready to take on that and, adding that into the cash flow management and all that kind of stuff. Right. So I was trying to figure out where can I get a house for under $50,000?
Oh yeah. That's the key. Finding the very low affordable homes. Right. So where did you wind up selecting this affordable house?
So my first investment property I bought was in Detroit.
Okay.
And awesome. I'm gonna be 100% honest with you guys.
What happened?
The number one reason that I even was like privy to the Detroit market is social media.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So like, I follow a lot of investment people and I had some people that I followed and respected on social media, and they were investing in Detroit, and they're like, "Oh, you could come to Detroit and get a property for $1,000."
Yeah, you used to be able to. Yeah,
you used to.
Yeah, not no more. To. I mean, if you have some political connects, you might be able to get it for $2,000.
Right, you get the land bank houses for $1,000, but they're burnouts. They got to be totally rebuilt, from the ground up. But I decided on Detroit. And, I was trying to find people, mind you, I had never been to Detroit. I don't know anyone there, but I was like, this is what we doing.
Right. No, and that's what you got to do. I did the same thing. I went all the way out to Kansas City, Missouri.
You just went there?
Well, someone was like, I'm telling you, you need to be here. I was like, all right. He was a business advisor. He actually helped me start my real estate development switch from being an investor. And he was living in Kansas City, Missouri at some point, and he was just explaining the market. I'm like, this sounds like Newark.
It's a very similar market to Detroit, though.
Yeah, not anymore. Now it's more high end. So after they won that Super Bowl, it was over. I literally gained like $80,000 in equity right after that Super Bowl, and it was COVID too. But it was just went pew like in a number of months. But you have to take that leap of faith as long as you know how to evaluate your numbers and the rents, the cash flow makes sense.
Right.
Definitely I literally invested. It was like $8,000. Wow. That got me into a $40,000 house. I refinance, cash out. That was it. Gotcha. I didn't even have to. It was so much equity. I didn't even have to rehab the property. Like it just started accumulating equity. So in this business, also you have to be, I always say, a visionary. You have to know what's driving the market, what dollars are coming in. And this just so happened, they won a Super Bowl. So I got lucky. But even with Detroit, what's happening in Detroit now? Now you got billions of dollars being dumped in, jobs being created. So now the values are going to finally start rising. So I hope you got at least 10 properties.
Yeah. So I'll tell you a little bit about the numbers on my deal. My first one there, I actually found the property on hubzoo.com, which is online auction place, right? So the property was a bank owned, it was an REO, and it was an auction. So I was bidding on properties, just to kind of see what I could get into. And I remember I was in DC at the time when I won the bid. So I won the bid for, I think my first bid was like, this was also 2019. So I won the bid for I won it for like 18,000. The first bid was like 14. By the time the bid closed, it was like 18,000 that I won it for. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I just won my first real estate property. Like, what am I going to do? I was in Detroit at a conference, and one of my lawyer friends were there. So I'm like, girl, what does this mean? What is a warranty deed? What kind of risk am I looking at? What's going to happen if X, Y, and Z? And, so we set up a real call so that, she kind of ran it down to me a little bit right at the conference, but we actually set up a call. I sent her, all the details about the deed and everything. So she let me know, like, okay, well, if anything comes up, you have the title company that's in place, and any encumbrances on the title will go back to them because you have the insurance, whatever. So cool. Got the acquired the property for $18K. Like I said, I didn't know anybody, never been to Detroit, don't know what side of town is on, never seen the property. But I just so happened to win a ticket to Forbes conference that was in Detroit. And I was like, okay, I'm going to be closing on this property soon. This is God telling me this is my time to go to Detroit.
Yeah, absolutely.
So went to Detroit, ended up actually closing on my property. One of the days that I was there, it was just a digital closing. I just signed everything while I was there. But I had to get insurance. I had to get insurance on the property, and they wouldn't let me close until I had the insurance. Right. And thank God I was there, because while I was at the conference, I'm calling all these insurance agents, couldn't get anybody on the phone. So I said, you know what? I'm gonna get in a cab. I'm gonna find an insurance company, buy the property. I went, stopped in an insurance spot, got my insurance, and went and drove an Uber, buy my property.
Awesome. Oh, wow. Now, tell us about, did you have to do a rehab? Was it move-in ready? Okay.
Yeah, so I did, so they said, I pulled up to the property. Now, the property next door to it needed a roof. It had tarp on top. It looked like it was about to fall down, right? If you know anything about Detroit, there are a lot of squatters there, right? So it looked like somebody was living in the house. And so when I pulled up, I got out. I didn't go inside. I just wanted to kind of walk around, see it, make sure it wasn't burned down. I could have been looking at old tax properties on the house. So, tax pictures on the house. So I just walked around. But I think that there was a guy in this abandoned house next door. I think he was the one that was probably squatting in my house. Right. So because when I look in the window, I could see a bed, I could see clothes, like somebody was living in there. But the mortgage company, the bank told me that it was unoccupied, right? And that
they don't know.
They don't know. But they were going to deliver it vacant anyway. So, you know, they were going to go in. So what they eventually ended up doing was they sent the team to go in there and clean it out.
Good. Okay.
So I found, while I was there, I was looking for people to, now start building my real estate team. So I found a couple contractors. I actually when I came back to Georgia, I actually met a woman who recommended me to somebody in Detroit who I ended up going with. Yeah, he was a very reputable guy. He gave me the highest the highest bid for the project. But I just felt most comfortable with him because he was like really professional. And I really felt like he wouldn't just run off with my money.
Yes.
So apparently you have to be really careful, don't go my route of real estate investing. Very, very risky.
No, I feel like in your situation, you had to go with that referral. Like one had to use discernment. And let me tell you, I'm going to do a whole podcast by myself on my real estate contractor hers. Okay.
Oh gosh. I can imagine.
And I'm also a general contractor. And it's still hers. It's still hers. Okay. Because you don't know how to do everything. You just have the license. Like with me, I have the license. I still have to hire a plumber.
You sub it all out.
Girl, that's a whole nother podcast.
Right. And then
so you can't even go with the lowest all the time. You have to go with reputation.
Yep.
You got to pray on it. There's a lot of things that go into hiring.
Listen, the energy. Okay.
Yeah. If they seem desperate, is a no.
I need to talk to you because I need to feel your energy. And if I'm not feeling it, we can't do business together. And while that might not be the best way to do business, it has worked for me. And I feel like it's just the discernment that God's given me to use. Yes. But yeah, he was the most expensive, and girl, it wasn't a lot. So I paid $18 for the property. Ended up, I think he gave me like $18,000 estimate. Ended up being around like 22. So I'm in 40 for the property, and it rents for $950 a month.
That was good,
girl.
Bomb. That was good. That's like the Kansas City deal, basically. That was good.
And honestly, so nowadays you can get $13.50 a month for a 3-bedroom in Detroit.
Yeah, the rent has gone up, I heard.
I could be renting that property right now for $13.50, but I really wanted to rent to a single mom. I want to provide nice, safe housing. So we went and we did it nice. It's all white and granite and all that kind of stuff, right. And white and grays, So we did it really nicely because I know growing up, my mom worked really hard to provide nice housing for us, right? Like I said, I grew up in a project, so it's definitely in my heart to provide some nice, safe, clean housing for a single mother who out there doing all that she can for her family.
That's awesome. And I have that same idea or notion. I'm also a realtor, so a lot of the clients that I had, they were coming out of shelters. And I was always, to this day, people still, like literally today called me, do you have any apartments? I was always known to make sure they were getting apartments that were still luxury but affordable. So right. As I continue to do investing and now development, that's my goal, to make sure I'm offering affordable luxury. So I don't care if it look like a war zone outside, the inside of their house needs to look like
sanctuary.
Yeah, that's your piece. So I agree with that. And I don't know if that particular client was getting Section 8 or not. I'm going to assume she wasn't, right?
My client, no, she's not. She doesn't get Section 8. She's a nurse. She has 3 children, and she's paid through the whole pandemic. Haven't had any issues.
Glory to God. I was just about to ask you that next. And I think it's important for us to keep it affordable. I know we want to line our pockets. We know what the market rent is. Do that with the next tenant maybe, but keep it. I'm not telling you what to do, but I think it's fair.
She actually wants to buy the house, and my property manager is like, no, we don't sell houses around here.
Right. But you know what? At least her mindset is in the ownership mindset. Yeah.
Right.
So maybe you could do her next flip, right?
I've considered seller financing, right? And so I'll tell your audience a little bit about how that works is that essentially I could become the bank, right? So after 2 years, her money will have paid for the house.
Okay.
I've considering pay for the money that I've invested in the house, right? And to be honest, I could cash out, refi the property today. So I'm all in 40. I could probably refinance. I mean, it's probably worth about 80,000, so it's not a whole lot, but I can pull out 60,000 cash today if I wanted to. But it's just there. Having too much cash on hand makes me work harder because now I got to find somewhere else to put it.
Exactly.
So, yeah. But I am working on some other deals. So we'll I'll share a little bit about that. Seller financing. So essentially, what I have been considering, and I don't think I am my property manager. She's like, well, if you're going to sell it, girl, you would just sell it to me. I'm like.
No, I was thinking maybe you can even find her another property and rehab that for her.
Right.
And get the market value.
Or my property manager can, but she's just, I don't know. My thing is,
she's going to be X'd out.
I'm not greedy. Exactly. Then she's going to be X'd out. So she wants to own all the properties. I'm not greedy. I want to help people with their goals, right? That's what's in my heart. And that's why God continues to bless me. So with the seller financing, I've considered offering her, hey, give me 10,000 down and then pay me $1,100 a month for 5 years. So $1,100 a month or even $1,000 a month will be $12,000 a year. And then you multiply that times 5 years, that's 50,000 or 60,000, whatever you want to do. You can do a 10-year, right? So I could say, give me $12,000 a year for 10 years. That's $120,000 that she'll pay me plus the $10,000 deposit. But in the meantime, it takes all the risk off my plate. So I'll essentially become the bank, and any kind of repairs or anything like that, she would now be responsible for because she's the new owner of the property.
Right. So let me ask you, what are your real estate goals? What do you see yourself?
So my real estate goals are 100 doors. So I want to own 100 doors. And honestly, I feel like I could do it in the next 3 to 5 years, probably even shorter than that. But my next project that I'm working on is development. So I'm working on getting my GC right now. And before, I actually just had an offer accepted for a single family here in Atlanta that I'm excited about it. So I'll give you the numbers on that one too in a second. But I've been looking at land. So I've been buying land. So I just won 2 different auctions for some land. So I won 18 acres here in west of Atlanta, a city west of Atlanta. It's 18 acres, but it's only 6 lots. So we would build 6 single family homes on it.
Okay.
But they're going to be beautiful. The houses there are 4,000 plus square feet, beautiful area, 600,000 and up type of neighborhood.
Right.
Thinking about keeping one for myself.
Right. You is only right.
Right. So getting into development in that way, also looking at another project where it was only 5 acres, but we could put in 30 townhouses.
Awesome.
So that's another deal that we're working on. We're waiting on city hall approvals and all of that in another city west of Atlanta, northwest of Atlanta. And so the deal that I'm in the middle of, I thought I was going to flip it, but the numbers are just too good to let it go.
Right. Hey, no, literally, you have to look at it like that. No, I can make more money on the back end by just keeping it. What I will say about development, because I know you said you wanted to get your GC license. I would just outsource the whole thing. Either to...
Oh, don't get my GC?
No, not if you want to stay pretty and young with good skin, no.
Well, I mean, look at you.
Girl, you don't see the bags? No, I'm playing.
You don't see these bags. Can you imagine that working with 250 clients a year is stressful? Okay.
God bless you. God bless you. He'll give us the grace. So so in Kansas City, I'm working on 140 townhouses as a joint venture with a builder by God's grace. I don't have to worry about that part.
Now, does he manage the financing, or do you? Are you?
No, I'll be managing the finances.
Okay.
And I will have control over. He's going to be basically lining up the subcontractors, but I do have a say-so on how it's going to be built. To be honest, I'm planning on making him. Well, he already knows this. If we can do all modular, that's the way I want to go.
Okay.
And for those who don't, yeah, because it's literally automation. It's automation. You know that you pay them this amount of money, they're projected to get this amount of houses done. They come and deliver the house. You get a set team, put it together. That's it. Well, for the most part, that's it, right?
Yeah.
Some modular companies, you do have to go in and hire someone to probably finish the kitchen and bathrooms. If that.
Easy work.
Right, easy stuff that I can literally do myself, even though I wasn't doing it. But I've just seen too much craziness. So yeah.
Thank you for listening to the Journey to DevelopHer podcast with Deontay Chantel and her special guest. Listen, we want you to rate and review this podcast on your favorite podcast listening platform and give us a 5-star review. That would be incredible. To follow Deontay on Instagram, just hit up Deontay Chantel. That's DIONTECHANTEL. And also on IG at Journey to DevelopHer. That's Journey to Develop Her. You can hit all the links in her bio with that. Stay locked in, keep developing, and we'll see you here next time.